Hi, I'm Sam. I'm the director of IT here at BitWizards, and joining me
I'm Louis Erickson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at BitWizards. And have you ever wished you had a cheat sheet to tell you how to do the little things that you're not an expert at?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because there's just so many areas of life that I am 100% YouTube taught, right? I'm hoping that I know what I'm doing, but for the most part, if I had an expert that could come in and just say, you know what, I could give you some pointers, would save you a bunch of money or save you a bunch of time, man, that would be so helpful in my life. Like I even think about like going through school. I remember when people would say to me, you know, if you stack your classes this way and you could clep this class, you could probably knock out 12 credits in this short amount of time. And stuff I wouldn't have even thought of or known to even go look for because I'm just going through school like you're supposed to.
And sometimes you don't even know what question to ask, so it's kind of interesting. But I learned that 90% of the damage that happens to power steering comes from when you spin the wheel all the way over. And so if you know just to leave it a little bit farther back, you wouldn't do that. Why would you even think to ask that or know that particular problem? But I got that little tidbit from an expert, and now it's helping me out.
So once you know, but it's not the kind of thing you would know otherwise. And it makes me wonder, like, what other things in life could I be more efficient at or more productive at? Or what other things am I even doing that are maybe dangerous and I don't even realize it? It makes me think of that TikTok that went viral last year. It was a tourist in Australia. She was a teenage girl, I think. And she picks up an octopus.
The little octopus, yeah.
And it was one of those blue ringed octopuses that are very cute, but also deadly poisonous. It could have killed her in like 2 minutes, but she's doing it for the likes.
For the likes, yeah. Wow, one of the most dangerous creatures on Earth.
Yeah, that's right. But very
It would have
cute.
been good to know what was in store for her ahead of time.
So having an expert, right, that could tell you, that could say, you know what, you might not want to pick up that octopus that's going to kill you, stone dead, in 2 minutes. So having that in life, I think, would be good. And since Louis and I come from technology backgrounds, we thought this would be a good opportunity for us to have that conversation with you about things you may not be aware of how technology and IT might actually be costing you money you're not aware of.
That's right. I mean, you don't know the things you don't know. So the Dunning-Kruger effect, I can't say the word now, effect, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know because you know a little bit. And so we trick ourselves into thinking, well, I'm pretty good at this, or I think I got this handled. But then even more so in that situation, you don't know what you don't know. And in my line of business doing IT, I hear people tell me a lot of times, they say, well, especially business owners will tell me, I know enough to be dangerous.
And they think they're joking, but they're not. That is actually 100% true statement. They know just enough to be absolutely dangerous.
Right, and that's scary for me because I'm like, okay, so I'm going to spend an hour fixing the things you fixed and then another hour to actually fix it the right way, the way it should have been done the first time. But don't worry, because in our conversation today, Louis and I are going to make a commitment. We're not going to get too technical. We're not going to get into the weeds and get into the geek speak of this. Rather, what we wanted to do today was to address the business aspect of technology and IT.
Yeah, and I think broadly 3 main categories of that, which would include the downtime, what it costs you, the reduced productivity that these IT problems cost you, and of course, what we hear the most about is security and the costs of being breached.
Right, but without getting into the technical nitty-gritty of that, but as a business owner, I think you'd be able to speak very well to this because I come from doing IT. I've been doing it for a long, long time, but you're not an IT person, correct?
No, I'm not. Actually, BitWizards, my background is in software development, software engineering, and BitWizards was founded as a custom software development firm. We didn't have managed IT only in the last 12 years or so. We've been in business 23. And even hiring IT or computer professionals and hiring software engineers, we outsourced our IT. We didn't, even if the guys had the skills, it was not cost effective to have my high-end software engineers to be doing IT work. And it also wasn't their field. So even though they have a much deeper knowledge, I think, than the average Joe, the truth is they weren't the experts who did this day in, day out, that could fix things quickly and efficiently. So we would suffer from all the same problems of downtime and lost productivity.
That's interesting. Okay, because I come from the other side of that. But we wanted to make sure today that as a business owner, we're talking to you who have a job or own a business that we can talk about what these IT effects how they might be affecting you on a day-to-day basis. And as Louis said, let's start talking just even about the downtime that can happen from having not all of your ducks in a row when it comes to your IT. Of course, we could think about, if you get a virus or if you get ransomware and it locks up all of your computers, that's definitely going to cost your business some time, right? Where you're unable to do what you're in business to do.
And depending on how deep the penetration goes, it could be your entire organization is down until this issue is resolved. Even in a smaller case, if it just affects a department or a few people, it can still be very costly.
Yes, or even a single individual in the organization. There are definitely certain people in your company that it would affect the whole company more if that person were to be down. Because you think about even, there's probably somebody there when they go on vacation, things start to slow down a little bit and everybody's waiting till they get back from vacation to ask those questions. Well, now with the IT side of things, we're thinking of that. What if it were to happen on a broader scale where it's not just has their flight been delayed, but more of a how are we going to get out of this situation? But that's the big one that makes the headlines. But one of the things that maybe you're not taking into consideration when it comes to how your IT could be costing you downtime could even just be the computers themselves that you have, if they're aging a little bit, if they're getting older, or if if you're making statements like, well, it still works fine, that might be an indicator that that's actually getting a little older. And the problem is it works until it doesn't.
Right. And the sad thing there, without actually proactively looking, is do you even know what your people are using? You're buying computers. You don't buy and outfit the whole office and replace all at the same time. You're doing onesie-twosies as you go along. And so if you're not really keeping an eye on it and people aren't saying anything, next thing you know, you've got a 10-year-old machine out there and you're losing 50% productivity from whoever's using it because they're continually fighting with some old hardware.
Yeah, and at any minute, that hardware could give out and it's no longer supported, it's no longer got a warranty on it, even getting the parts for it is going to be challenging, and everything's going to go that much slower because it's older hardware, so that downtime of getting everything back up and running again could be very costly to your business. And it's so easy to think, well, I just bought this. I know I just bought this, but then when you actually start pulling up the numbers on it, and you're like, wow, that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And, normally if you get other things in life, you think, well, 5 years old, that's not that old. But in the technology space, 5 years is a really long time.
Absolutely.
Another area, though, where you could where we experience downtime is when your internet goes out. Here in the Panhandle, the weather likes to take care of that problem for us and take out all of the electricity and all of the internet. But it is kind of shocking. You don't realize just how much your company, your business relies on being connected until it's not. If you've ever tried to work on a plane, you understand just how little you can do and how worthless your phone is without the internet.
And the cloud has been a huge boon to productivity, allowing things to be distributed across the country, across the world. But we didn't even realize it. If you lose your internet connectivity, you're losing mail, you're losing applications, the software as a service applications. You're losing connectivity to all the things you need. Here at BitWizards, we have two completely separate, dedicated fiber lines because we are so dependent on the internet, it reaches that level of need.
It's not a nice to have for us.
It's a must have.
Yeah, it's a must have. And it may be easy to think that, well, we used to be able to get by before we had the internet. I'm sure we can get by after. Well, maybe in a dystopian post-apocalyptic world, yes, as everybody adapts to it and we're fighting off zombies. But for now, I think if your internet goes out and you don't have a backup plan in place for that, it's going to hurt your organization. You're going to be experiencing some major downtime.
Absolutely. Yeah, that pre-internet world, the tools are written that way. But this is a post-internet world, and the tools are written for its use, and they don't function without it.
And there was one other thing that I thought of that causes downtime within an organization that comes from maybe just not paying attention to all the things or things you don't know. And that is when services that you subscribe to expire and you weren't keeping track of it. The one I've seen the most is domain name. So if you've registered your business.com and you got your email set up with it and you've got everything pointing to it, and then you forget that you've got to renew that. Well, a couple of things can happen. It can expire on its own, and then all of a sudden you don't have email and it's not working, and people are calling saying, why is your website down? But what could even worse could happen is if you let that domain name go and you didn't know to renew it, somebody else could sneak in there and grab it.
Snatch it from you.
Yeah, I've seen that, and it's very timely and time-consuming and costly to try to get all of those things to wrestle them back again from the people who shouldn't have them.
All these services are set to notify you, but the problem is that it may not be the email you're currently using, or nobody's monitoring, or somebody's moved on. But they also, the notification when these domain names are no longer subscribed to notifies other people who want them. So they're getting notified pretty quickly when they become available.
Yes, that's happened to me personally, where I've had somebody come in and snatch out one of the domain names that I owned while it was in transit. And so now you may be thinking, well, you know, these things happen very, very rarely that we experience downtime. Or if we do, it's okay. I just send everybody home. They work from their home. And that's that problem solved. But what the other thing we've noticed, and this was one of the ones that Lewis mentioned as one of the root causes of the costs that your bad IT is costing you, is the reduced productivity. If you don't have all of your IT squared away, it's actually costing you more than you may be aware of, just in the productivity within the organization, within your employees. One of the ones that I think of is the amount of times that your computer has died, it's crashed, and you hadn't hit save. I've gotten almost to where it's a nervous twitch now to hit Control S, Control S. I don't even think about it. I'm typing Control S because I'm saving, because a lifetime of losing work and then having to redo all of that work. Yeah. I've had calls where people have said, you know what, QuickBooks just crashed. We've lost it all. The last time I backed it up was Thursday. And so now I've got to go back and basically redo 5 days worth of work before I could even get to where we were supposed to be today.
And with the demands in this day and age, it's hard to lose a minute's worth of work, much less 5 days worth of work.
That's right. It's like it feels like you're drowning and then somebody hands you a baby.
Yeah.
Right? You're having a hard time trying to keep up with it to begin with, and now you've got to redo all the work you had done. So that's definitely a big area where people lose their productivity for bad IT.
Another place people lose productivity is in small organizations. The CEO, the owner, often wears multiple hats, and they end up being IT support. As the organization grows, and they may have 10, 20 employees doing it, they continue in that role. But what a loss of value having the top person maybe fixing a printer. Yes. Because somebody can't do it. That's just another loss of productivity, a loss of value in the organization.
That's right. It's so often the IT responsibilities fall on the person who's unlucky enough to have let somebody else know that they're semi-technical. And so from that moment on, anything that goes wrong goes to that person. And we have a client in the Destin area. They're a fairly large organization, and they came to us because the chief technical officer of this large organization said he was so tired of fixing this one lady's computer where she kept deleting the Outlook icon on her desktop and saying, Outlook's gone. Well, she was just deleting the icon. He'd go to a recycle bin and drag it back out again and say, okay, I fixed it for you. He's like, I can't keep doing this. I need somebody else to do this. And it makes sense. He's getting paid way too much to be a chief financial officer, I should say, to be sitting here messing around with somebody's Outlook icon.
And even, I know you misspoke there, saying chief financial officer and chief technical officer, but why would you even want your chief technical officer recycling an icon? Even in that sense where they're in the IT field, they should be looking at the strategic vision of your organization, not worrying about a lost icon.
That's right.
It is still a loss of productivity.
It is. You got the wrong, you're paying somebody to do a thing and then asking them to do something very different as well.
Yeah. And we talked about the hardware being antiquated and all the difficulty of re-establishing it if it goes down. But you know what? It could actually be the best thing possible if that piece of hardware goes down, because what's worse is it doesn't go down, but it's sluggish, slow, cumbersome, and whoever's using it without saying a word, just trying to be a good employee and struggle through it, is continuing to do work on a machine that's killing their productivity.
And it's this there's this mentality of, but it's working okay, it's working fine. But if you're sitting there staring at the hourglass flipping over and over, oh man, you got to just think about, even if it's slowing somebody down 10% in their job, you've essentially reduced their productivity by that same 10%. And so those hardware costs start to grow and grow and grow. And what we've discovered is every time you try to save a couple bucks by waiting a little bit longer, you end up spending those same couple bucks and maybe a few more later on when it comes time to replace it anyway. Yep. And then maybe one of the last ones, and it's still in the IT space, but is even a lack of training. Because how often do we just throw our employees in the deep end and say, well, figure it out, right? Or they're having to rely
Back
on
to
the
YouTube.
person. Yes, that's right. YouTube will give you the answers because a lot of people, that's what you run into a problem and your printer won't print. And so what are you doing? You're Googling printer won't print. And who knows what kind of results you're going to get from that even, right? And so even just that lack of training, lack of knowledge of what the tools you're paying for can even do. I can't tell you how many times we're in situations where we say, did you know your program can do this? And they're like, oh. Changed my life, right? From here on out. So
In fact,
those little
I'd
tricks.
love to share a story. We use it here at BitWizards to remind our team to be humble, where we don't know what our clients do. They don't know what we do sometimes. But I believe you were in the paralegal office, and the lady had lost sight of her clients, right?
That's right. We were visiting, and the lady at the front desk was working. And she goes, "Well, since you're here, maybe you could help me with something. But all of my files are out of order." I remember thinking, what does that mean? All your files are out of order. But she had the window open that had all of the files on the case they were working on. It's a law firm, and sure enough, they were all just all over the place. And she was trying to figure out. She goes, every time I need to find a specific file now, I've got to scroll through and read each one to find out if it's the right thing. And what had happened was she had it sorted based on how large the files were, not based alphabetically on the name
Some
of the files.
misclick without realizing it was doing a sort.
Didn't even realize she did it, I'm sure. And man, that's a tough one because she said she'd been struggling with it for over a week now, trying to find her files.
And she didn't know what she didn't know to even YouTube how to sort files without realizing that was even the problem.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we were able to show her.
Yes.
And now she would know.
Nice and easy. We're going to click on the name at the top here, and it's going to sort everything alphabetically. We get to it a lot quicker that way. But it is challenging, especially if you have someone that has a Mac at home, and then they start working for you, and it's all Windows, and they just feel completely out of their depth, or vice versa. That happens a lot. So a little bit of IT knowledge and training goes a long way as well to reducing the costs of poor IT there.
Absolutely.
Now, the last one, Lewis, you talked about was security. So what would you say in the cybersecurity space, what would you say is the biggest risk to you and your business?
Well, I think a lot of people might think hackers or viruses, but the truth is, it's your employees. The biggest risk to your IT is your own employees. And it isn't because they're malicious. It isn't because they're consciously trying to be malicious. It's just, it is, you're handing them the keys to the kingdom.
That's right.
With this remote work that we have, everybody has everything available on their phones, on their tablets, on their laptops that they're moving around with and taking out of your organization, in your organization.
So if you think about, the emails you even send to your employees within the organization, or some of the files you're working on, or the finances you're working on together, and then think about, well, that might be on one of your team members' iPads, right? Because they like to work on it in the evening when they're at home. But then they're on a road trip somewhere, and the kids are in the back seat screaming, and they're just like, here, I'll put a movie on the iPad here, play on my iPad. But actually, what they've just done is hand a 6-year-old at a truck stop gas station all of your company's private information and property is all sitting on there just so they can watch Blue's Clues, right? So there's a lot of situations like that where your employees are a prime target. If the hackers are going to get in, oftentimes they're not even looking for a vulnerability in a piece of software. They're looking for somebody who works at your organization.
I think all those 80s movies, has probably put the wrong vision in people's mind as they're hacking through trying to figure out passwords and de-encrypt files. They're not. They're using social engineering to hit up your employees, to give those passwords, to give that access. Anybody watching this who gets email has seen, go fix your PayPal account. We need you to log in and fix it. And they're phishing for your email and passwords so they can get in and do malicious things. It is probably the number one method hackers would use to gain access, which is social engineering against your own employees.
And it's so hard to combat that because you want your employees to be helpful, but it's the helpfulness that gets you into trouble, right? Because when somebody, even if you had a key scan at the door so that only the people who can get in should be the ones who get in, but then somebody's got their arms full of stuff and they're like, oh, hold the door for me. Naturally, we want to hold the door open for people. And we do that in the IT space a lot. That happens in organizations where people are willingly giving away the password, and that's because you're using the same password on all those things in your company, and now your former employees know that same password you've used for years and years.
Well, in today's day and age, you have so many passwords. The idea we asked people said, make them unique, make them difficult, make them long. And they have to, their email, their apps, there's so many passwords, it's not a reasonable request.
Right.
And so, again, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And the truth is, nobody can make you 100% secure. It's impossible. I like to say here at BitWizards is, as an analogy, we provide the vault and the safe, but if your employees walk them directly into the vault, there's nothing we can do about that.
Right.
But that's not 100% true because we have is defense in depth.
Yeah.
Train people to do that. Have the backups in case something gets lost. Segment the network so that it's not, everything isn't available if they get in. And that is what the complex nature of trying to protect you from something that in the end, the productivity has to be done, which means these people have to have access. And if they have access, they might give it to somebody else.
Right. Because it's easy to secure a network if we just lock everything and nobody has access to anything at all. But you've still got a job to do. You still got to get work done. That's right. That's all that becomes is an anchor. And so honestly, then it really is with your own employees, with your own team members. That's probably the first highest security risk. Now, of course, the big one that makes the headline news is the ransomware and the cryptoware that's out there, and that's where the hackers somehow get onto your system and they lock everything on your computer, and the only way to get it back is with a password, and you're gonna have to pay them in Bitcoin to get that password back. That is pretty scary stuff.
It is, and I think even calling law enforcement in some cases, they'll let you know these are foreign actors that we don't have much control over. Often the advice they give you is to pay it.
Yeah.
Most will actually free up your network because they know it's a good business model to give you but not all.
Right.
You could pay and still be locked out.
But in terms of, the things you don't know that are hurting you, they only have to be successful once. You have to be successful all
Every
the time in keeping them out from that ransomware. And the thing that worries me as an IT person is what comes after ransomware, because ransomware is the big thing right now. And 2 years ago, it was adware. And then before that, it was spyware. And there's all these different,
new scams, new manipulations, new ways to come and get you.
So what comes next?
Absolutely.
What's after that? I don't even know, right? So that's one of them. And then maybe one of the last ones, you could speak to this, Lewis, would be compliance issues. Could be a way that people could lose without even realizing it, but if they get out of compliance in a system that they're responsible for.
Absolutely. Well, there's legal consequences to that, of course, not to mention contractual consequences. Many organizations have to meet certain compliances to do work for the government or to do work in law enforcement or even mortgage brokers. They have different compliance standards. And if you're out of compliance, even without being breached, if it's discovered, you may lose clients. You may lose potential customers because you're not at the level you need to be at to be handling their data.
Yeah, that's a quick way to lose money. If you're taking credit card information, you're responsible to keep that secure. If you have patient information, there's a level of responsibility you have to
the
to
HIPAA
maintain.
compliance there, or CJIS compliance. Our team for this for police and
Yes.
fire, and then other CMM levels for different government contracting, cybersecurity maturity.
Yeah, there's so many of those, right? And who's keeping track of all of them? But as you've been signing contracts and as you've had clients signing your contracts, there's a level of responsibility that goes with that the IT that you maintain, the technology you maintain, you have a level of responsibility to keep that secure. Because that can be an easy way to lose a lot of money in your business.
Yeah. And BitWizards is proud. We keep several compliance standards for ourselves. I mean, we are SSAE, SOC compliant, and we have many people qualified in other compliances for our client base.
That's right. So, and that's actually why we're even having this webinar, because we don't want to just find ways to help you save a little bit of money. We want you to be successful in what you do. And so we always say, we focus on your IT so you can focus on your business, because that's what you do well. There's so many companies that we do work for, and I look at them and I think, man, I could never do their job. I don't know how they do what they do. It's all voodoo to me, but I can come in and fix your computers for you if that's okay. I'll keep the network running. Is that all right? Right. So that's our philosophy on it, is let us do the IT side of things so you can focus on your business and not risk all of these myriad ways you can lose money on it.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier on, that's even BitWizards, when we were just a software company, we kept our software engineers focused on writing software, and we outsourced our IT to an MSP company.
Yeah. Even though you're an IT, you are a technology company yourself.
Company, but we weren't an MSP. We didn't have people working on security and locking things down and and networking on every day. Yes, our team has the skills, but they were also producing the income by writing the software that we were building for other people. I couldn't afford to have them off working on the firewall or adjusting AP sensitivity or replacing a computer.
All of those things. Yeah, taking the time to go price up a new machine, figure out which is the right one to get, all of those things. Yeah. Well, and we've talked about, some of the costs of not knowing all the things you need to know about your IT, but some of those costs can add up. Our team pulled up some of the statistics for this, and some of them sound a little out there, but I think if you start doing some of the math, you can see how some of these numbers happen. But they were talking about, the cost to a business in a small, medium-sized business for even an hour of downtime can be upwards of $8,000 to a business. Now, that might be a little hard to swallow, that number, right?
Yeah, but if you break it across if you break it across all your employees who may be down, if you break it across the downstream productivity losses because of that time, even as simple as something as getting people back into it once they've gone down because they might have gotten distracted, gone home, done something else. It can really add up quickly.
And so by doing the opposite of that, by making sure that your IT is taken care of, you're actually giving yourself that competitive advantage where everybody else is losing $8,000 an hour in downtime. You're giving yourself that $8,000 tax-free benefit to your company by not being down and by being able to maintain your productivity. In fact, companies that got hacked, this was another statistic we saw, for small businesses in the US in 2022, the average cost when they were breached was nearly $3 million. It was 2.9 something.
2.9 for each instance in
that's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Especially in the small business space. And that's just here, the companies that we're working with and the ones that we're this isn't some big name company that you've seen on the news. We're talking small businesses, small medium-sized businesses getting hit with this downtime and with these attacks. So we wanted to make sure that you have the advantage. That's why we want to do this webinar, to not run into those things. We wanted to make sure you're productive by having employee retention. We wanted to make sure that we could talk about these things so that you are able to provide a great place for people to work in your business.
Absolutely.
It's been a big one for us. I run into this when we do IT for our clients. Sometimes they'll hire a new person and we'll be part of onboarding their new employee, and they'll oftentimes say, "Wow, this is so different than the IT at my old company because it used to be such a headache. Had to jump through all these hoops."
Nobody knows who to turn to, and like I said, we often suffer in silence unless they absolutely have to do something. And then, who fixes the printer? Hopefully not the CEO.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And hopefully it's not the one person who's out this week who has all of that stuff stored in their email somewhere. Right?
For our clients, we make sure that when we onboard a new client, we give them a bunch of mousepad and other marketing gear so that our phone number is right there and they know exactly who to call whenever there's a problem.
Yeah, we always tell our clients, if you got any IT issues, just pick up the phone, give us a call. In fact, that would be my recommendation, even if you're not one of our clients, is pick up the phone and give us a call, because whatever level of help you think you might need, I think we can definitely help you. I mean, if you need consultation on how to pick out the right software for your business or which hardware you're supposed to buy for your employees, I think we could answer some of those questions, right?
And for IT, it's such a broad term. And for us, IT really means the network assets, the computer assets, the desktops, the laptops, the mobile phones, the network. But we also do vendor management to help make sure that facilitate other IT, such as the phone system, which we don't handle, to make sure that we've got a port going through the firewall. Who at your organization, even if you have a phone vendor, they're going to be like, okay, who's handling your firewall? Hopefully somebody knows where they'd have to open up a port without opening up everything to everyone.
Yeah, because you may have gotten that email that said, for you to use this software, you need to do this on your firewall. You need to set these settings on your network. And a lot of times, people don't even know where to begin with that conversation. And so that's what we are good at providing that. We maybe you need help desk support
Yeah.
for your employees, that they just keep running into IT issues, is becoming a problem, and you just need someone they can pick up the phone and call and help them.
Somebody help bring that icon back onto the desktop.
That's right. Somebody else to drag it out of the recycling and back to the desktop. Or maybe, you know, as we're talking about ransomware and viruses and backups and all these things, maybe you don't even know where to get started on all of that. Like, where are you supposed to start? Are you supposed to read a magazine these days? Is there a blog that tells all of this stuff? Well, that's why we're here. We want to help however we can in those situations.
Not just to help all the little problems, but help you with the strategic thinking about the long-term issues that we on down, and planning and budgeting for your IT needs as you move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I know we're going to answer some questions because people have been putting questions in, but we're going to answer some questions here. But I did want to ask you one more thing, Lewis, and I think you'd be the best to answer this, is why do you think people should call us about these questions if they do have questions on how we can help them save money on their IT, not lose money on bad IT?
Yeah, well, our team is an amazing, diverse group of people, and I always joke, because you're not a good leader until they're mocking you behind your back over the things you repeat over and over again. And one of the things I always say is happy customers and great IT in that order. Humanization of IT. Our staff is courteous, they're humble. We use that story we talked about with the sorting, about how that might be a snickering kind of moment for somebody who understands computers at depth, since it was such a simple thing. But the thing is, that woman was a paralegal. None of us know how to write a brief.
That's right. Yes, I could not do her job. But I can sort her files for her alphabetically, so I'll do that for her, yes. Without being condescending about it. I don't want us to ever be, you know, Jimmy Fallon's character on SNL.
Yeah. Move,
and he jumps over. No, we don't do that. We don't do the geek speak, and we don't talk down to people either. But yes.
Yeah, which encourages them to call us more often, to take those problems. We also, the happy customers, part of that is to what else can I help you with? Ask the questions when you have them on the phone. I mean, nobody wants to call us.
Right.
They just want to do their job. And hopefully they don't have to call us because everything's going smooth. But it's going to break. We all know that. Mm-hmm. But when they do call, they want to get a courteous person who thinks about the root problem, perhaps does a little bit of training to help them in the future.
Yep.
And then also ask, what else? Have you been feeling any pain? And then dig through those problems to really get top-notch IT.
Yep. That's right, because we really do, we're firm believers in that bad IT is costing you money and you don't even realize all the ways that that's happening. And so we want to make sure we're able to help you with that.
Absolutely. Putting the business first. The IT is always there to serve the business need, never the other way around.
Okay, so we've had a few questions come in while we've been talking. I thought we could take just a few minutes, maybe answer some people's questions that maybe we got some tips and some advice, because actually the first question, Lewis, here is they're asking, Serena's messaging, and she's asking, do you have any tips we can follow day to day to keep our computers working efficiently?
Well, I have one really simple one, except my background was in software engineering, and occasionally we would let some memory leaks that would take resources on your computer and not give it back. So one tip is just restarting your machine daily. It's probably a good habit. Even if you leave your machine on for updates, at the end of the day, just click restart as you're walking out the door. Help free up all of the resources that might have been inadvertently taken, and get you functioning on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and that's a question I hear quite a lot. People ask, should I leave my computer on at night or turn it off because of the electricity usage? And I've seen lots of people who have policies both sides of that. I agree with you. Restart it because that helps keep everything running smoothly, but leave it on so that it can get its updates overnight. And honestly, modern PCs are pretty power efficient. It's not going to cost you a fortune to do it, but making sure everything's up to date is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, that's another great tip, is making sure that everything's up to date. While occasionally an update can actually cause trouble, the truth is there's more benefits than minuses when it comes to that. For security as well as efficiency and whatnot, it fixes problems. So automatic updates, I think, and
well, and the same with antivirus. It needs to be able to check in daily because it gets new definitions of new viruses that are out there. If your computer starts running very, very slowly all at once, there's a good chance that there's some kind of a virus or something going on there. So making sure that's up to date as well as all your other things. And
another good reason to keep it on is that if that's scheduled to run a large scan is scheduled to run in the middle of the night when you're not using it, if you turn your computer off and you turn it back on, it might want to try to kick that off while you're actually
Yes.
trying to do productive work. It's trying in the background, you don't even realize it, but maybe a virus scan is going on.
And it's slowing things down.
Yeah, another good reason to keep it on overnight.
Yep. And then lastly, I would just say, share your computer as little as possible. You know, if you use your work computer, but your kids use it for doing homework, they're going to be installing stuff, or if they put games and stuff on there that you might not even see, but it's slowing your machine down. Or in a work environment, if you've got 3 or 4 people all using the same PC, it's not the end of the world, but it is going to run quite a bit slower because everyone's installing their stuff and
their
synchronizing
personalization.
Yeah,
so, absolutely.
We had another question come in that asked, how could we help our employees avoid security risks? Is there certain advice or any training that you would recommend?
Well, that's probably an ongoing thing and certainly doing it. But some simple rules of thumb is to mistrust everything. You know, when the scammers, we talked about earlier, it's actually the human hacking that they're trying to do. They're trying to get your credentials, your information, and they are slick. They're very good at fooling you. In fact, we got one here where our HR or our finance person got an email from a brand new employee and said, "This is my new account direct deposit information," and she just put it in, and was a paycheck was sent to somebody who was not our employee, and it was that slick to know it was a new employee and who to send it to, and
within the organization.
It got through. So if you get emails, typically that was very customized, very precise attack. Usually what happens is kind of these spam things. Oh, your Netflix account is bad, go, or your PayPal account or something. So rather than click the links in the email, if it's valid, go to the website itself. So if you have a PayPal account, they say your PayPal account has an issue, do not click the links in the email. Go type in www.paypal.com and log in and see if there's any issues.
Yeah. Someone calls you and says, we're with such and such company. Say, great, hang up. Call the company back and ask for that person, because don't trust the incoming. Make sure you go get it yourself. And then that's for your employees. For the business itself, let me just say this. If I were to ask any business owner, how secure do you think your IT is? Most people tell me, pretty secure, right? There's that hopefully nodding, but then if I was to say, well, give me a number out of 100, how secure would you say your IT is? Most people don't even have a place to begin to even know that. And so there are organizations out there who are the good guys who will come in, look at your network, look at your environment, and make sure, see if there's anything that is glaringly obvious, an opening or a vulnerability within your computer systems or your network as a whole.
It's one of the requirements, actually, we had mentioned earlier that BitWizards has SSAE certification, and one of the requirements for that is also to annual penetration testing. So, in fact, we're so fond of them, I'll go ahead and plug them, but we use a company called Triaxiom.
Yeah.
And every year they come in and try to break through and find vulnerabilities, and then we can fill those holes. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I'd rather have the good guys looking for them than the bad guys finding them, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. This question came in from Tabitha Erickson asking, how do you maintain your boyish charm and youthful good looks? I don't know. I don't think that's a real
I don't
one.
know why she loves me, but I'm a lucky guy. I'm a lucky guy. She must be nearsighted or something. I don't know.
So how about this one then? Could you talk maybe a little bit, since you said compliance standards, what about BitWizards? Like, what kind of compliance does BitWizards have, and what does that even mean?
So BitWizards itself is SSAE compliant.
Okay.
And it has a list of control mechanisms for different things. Vendor, if we get a new vendor, how do we vet them?
Okay.
Security performance standards, policies and procedures, just a couple hundred checkpoints, and they say for this potential, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Now that's for BitWizards itself, and we have to maintain that.
Yes.
But we also keep some of our people certified for our clients. So maybe you could talk to that, because we did the CGIS and others.
Yeah, in fact, our entire IT team here for our managed IT services, they are all CGIS compliant. They're certified, which is the Criminal Justice Information System certification that they have. So they've all passed the background checks, and they've all done the certification path they needed to do to actually be qualified to work in police systems or any of the court systems. So that's a big one too. If you're going to be working with those data, which are secured. Then you have to be certified to even be able to look at those things. I think of PCI is another compliance
PCI,
standard.
yeah,
that's if you take credit card
Any
information.
kind of credit card information? Yeah, absolutely.
HIPAA, if you're in any kind of medical field with any kind of medical records, then what HIPAA does is it says what you can and can't do and how responsible you are for people's personal medical information.
Yeah, what level of security and what, they said, how do you keep it safe, and they certify that you do that.
Right.
Our certification was third party. We can't certify ourselves. They come in and test us that we have that. And of course, the penetration testing, we don't ever allow that internal. We need an external resource. Say, okay, we're the guys hardening it. How do you come in?
I used to do all of our internal pen testing, but we always came up with 100% every time. So we said, let's find somebody outside who's maybe not in charge of the IT to also test the IT as well.
Great. I am great again.
Well, and maybe a big overarching theme with compliance and security in general is, unfortunately, if it's convenient, it's probably less secure.
That's true.
And the more secure you're going to make the environment, the less convenient it's going to be. It would be so much easier to be able to walk up to an ATM and just punch in how much you want and kick out the money from your bank account. But they make you put in that PIN number that only you know,
and
because
having the card.
Have the card. You got to do all these inconvenient things, but that's to make sure that only you're getting into your stuff. And it's the same in the technology space. When you walk away from your computers, they should all be locked when you walk away. But I would say so many companies that I see don't do even the simple things like that, like locking their machines when they walk away. Our compliance requires us to have rules in place that make sure that if somebody leaves their workstation unattended, it's going to lock itself if they don't remember to lock it before they go.
Yeah, if the time frame is too long, and somebody here notices, we also punish by putting a Hello Kitty screen and changing their screening. Reminding them that we would shame people a little bit for that process. But you're right. Security does add some inconvenience. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing we pride ourselves at BitWizards is we're always telling our IT staff, security is always a secondary concern.
Yes.
There has to be a primary business function. Horrible example, but nuclear missile. Could you think of anything that needs to be more secure? But its primary mission, of course, is to launch and explode. Mm-hmm. If we wanted to be super secure, it wouldn't exist at all.
Right. Or we'd just encase it in concrete, and then nobody's going to get to it.
And then nobody's going to get to it, and of course, it'd be useless. We don't want to have MORDAC, Preventer of Information Services. For people who don't know, that's a Dilbert character, the network facilitator who makes sure that you're shut down. But, even I like to tell people, even the inconvenience of a deadbolt, you have to have maybe a separate key.
Yeah.
More secure, but one more step.
Yep.
And so finding the balance between security and productivity is a tightrope that we walk here all the time.
I remember when the iPhone first came out, you would unlock it, it just said slight unlock, and that's how everybody opened up their phone until we realized, I've got a lot of private personal stuff on there, and now everybody has a face print or a thumbprint or a PIN number to get into their phone. And it's that extended to all the elements of your organization and your business, right? We have one last question. I think this is a great one from Andrew, talking about, Andrew has a company, about 35 employees. They have a person there who's dedicated for IT, but at what point does it become cost effective for them as a small business, around 35 employees? When does it become cost effective to hire outside managed service provider like our managed IT services at BitWizards?
Actually, the smaller the company, the more cost effective it is to do an IT. Say you're a one-person shop and you're the CEO. Whatever business you're in, whether it's construction or insurance or any multitude of business, how are you going to hire that IT person? What do you know how to hire them? What software tools are you going to use? If you don't have a background in that, it's pretty tough. So outsourcing that right away when you're the smallest makes a lot of sense. It's actually at what point are you big enough that you can have your own team and need to have your own internal resources. And
and I think there's a window between those two as well, where it makes sense. You might get large enough where it makes sense to start hiring internal IT resources, but also still have an outsourced IT company. One of the advantages I know that we are able to provide, because we have over a dozen highly trained, highly skilled, highly experienced and certified IT technicians that have a wide range of technical knowledge, like a really, really wide range, from old archaic technology to the latest cutting edge stuff. There's probably one or two people on the team who are experts in that. And we're able to provide that to all of our clients all the time. So they have a department of more than a dozen IT people for a small 2-3 person shop. They've got a 12-person IT department, right, through
and
our
even-
IT.
Exactly. Even if you hire a fantastic IT person, having no skill and potential even knowing that, but you get lucky and you get a great one, it is just this field is far too wide for any one person to truly master everything. And while we train jack of all trades across the technology with our technical staff, each seems a specialization about networking
Yes.
or access points, or even more help desk and more
Yeah.
printers and these kinds of specializations of who does this kind of work.
Yes.
And then spreading it across. So you're absolutely right. A three-person shop
Yeah.
now has access to a 15-person technical team to solve their problems.
Well, and I've seen it before where I've walked in and 3 of our technicians are on the phone at the same time with different people in the same organization. One of them's in Panama City Beach, one's in Pensacola, one's over in Destin. And if they'd had just one IT person, that one person would have had to choose, am I going to help the person in Pensacola right now, or Panama City Beach, or Destin? Whereas because they were using our managed IT services, they were able to take advantage of all of them being able to get help at the exact same time. And if you're picking out a managed service provider, some of the things you're going to want to look for are they going to be able to work with your business the way you run your business, or are you going to have to kind of shoehorn what you do into their system maybe? Or do they have the experience of their technicians experienced or certified? Do they know how your industry works? These are good questions to ask when you're looking for IT support.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, like we just finishing it off, is the economy of scale that you get from that. Because you're right, if you have 3 problems all at once, it's nice that they can all be handled. But then you may have 3 weeks you have no problems at all. And
Yeah.
why do you need that IT staff if you're at that size? Whereas we're obviously keeping busy with several clients all at once.
Yes.
And growing our staff to make sure we keep our ticket count within
Yes.
a reasonable level so that people get responses.
Yes, and also make sure that the company you're going to work with is a reputable company. They're going to stick around. I've heard horror stories of people hiring IT companies and then a guy shows up with this is true, a guy shows up with no shoes on and still hungover from the night before, there to fix their computers. So make sure the company you're working with is a good company that understands what you do and wants to partner with you to help you succeed. Like we talk about, we do IT so you can take care of your business.
Exactly.
'Cause you do that best.
Great question to ask them too is to ask a story about the last client that left them. And of course, you probably won't get the pretty picture, but I will say clients move on for different reasons. Maybe they find another vendor, maybe there's another relationship. And we have always been very ethical in making sure that we transition that. If you're not happy with our service, that we move people off. But we've actually been on the receiving side of other IT vendors who decided to become spiteful and become very difficult because they're in your systems. It can get quite challenging.
Yes, we've had quite a few of those instances. So there's a lot to consider there. I know we talked about so many different things today, but of all the things that you may be thinking about your organization, and we wanted to talk about how some bad IT may be costing you money. And it really does boil down to that downtime and the security issues, right, that are just going on in there. And you just got to make sure that you're thinking through all of these things, and if you're not, that you have somebody who is.
Absolutely.
Right,
And
who
the
knows
productivity
this.
losses.
Yes, and the productivity losses, of course. So
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed what we've been able to talk about today. I've enjoyed being with you here today, Lewis.
Yeah,
Thank
it was
you.
nice hanging out. And
Yes. And if you would like to get in touch with us, of course, all of our information is here on the website. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.